What's up, guys? Before we get into Hoppe Hour and our interview with Third Leg Greg, I want to remind you guys about Speedy Link Wireless, the Metro PCS dealer in Tampa Bay with over 22 locations from Dade City all the way to Sarasota. And their main store is at 7813 Palm River Road, and that's in Tampa. If you go there and tell them that I sent you and that you heard about it on the podcast, they will hook you up with a great deal. All right, without further ado, here is Third Leg Greg, only on Hoppe Hour.
What's going on, boys? It's the word.
What up? What's up, man? Dude, you know what I like about you, man, is for me, I get nervous at times when I'm in front of people, but I love the fact that you're in front of a sold-out crowd. And you act like you're in front of two people. You have this calm confidence that gives you national attention, man. I just love how you do your job, man. It's very approachable.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I mean, obviously it's been years in the making. I mean, coming from radio myself, you know, you've had plenty of experience being in front of large crowds and you know, concert crowds to... You know, I've been doing the Lightning thing really since 2007. So, I mean, it's been going on 11 years off and on. I mean, I only did not do it for about a season and a half from 2009 to like 2011. And we had a lockout year in the middle of all that. But that was during the Lightning's bad ownership years. And that was before Jeffrey Vinnick bought the team. So it's really just experience. You know, I tell people all the time, like, you don't really focus so much on the atmosphere, is you focus on the moment. So if you're talking to somebody or interviewing somebody or just, you know, you have a job to do, you focus on what you're supposed to do, not so much on the surroundings. And that's why I think, like you said, you know, when I'm in the arena or, you know, in front of the camera or whatever it may be, I just try to be myself. And, you know, if it comes off as a relaxed calmness to it, it's just because, you know, I really am just about that moment at that time.
So... when I listen to some of my old radio shows, I've been in radio for 6 years, I cringe, man. I just cringe. I was trying so hard to be a loudmouth and be like Howard. It's just really painful. For you, man, is there any chance, you've been doing this for 11 years now as the host, do you cringe at how you did it like 10, 11 years ago? Or do you think you've been doing a pretty good job for the last decade?
You know, I don't really have a whole lot of footage to go back and look at, you know, from like those early seasons, but I don't think I cringe too much. I mean, again, like I'll see myself up on the boards if we do like a pregame shoot or whatever, you know, and I'm my biggest critic a lot of the times too, but like you said, I don't really cringe. I will tell you this, you know, like you said, going back to radio days, I still have AirTech tapes from when I literally started in radio back on my AM days, and some of it was absolutely atrocious. I mean, it's awful, awful radio. But, I mean, yeah, that's what gets you to that point. So, I mean, you can look back on it and laugh on it, but then it also shows you at the same time how much you've grown and how different you sound now. And that's obviously, you know, based upon your experiences and just being able, you know, to have the outlet to continue to practice and work on your craft. So, it's funny to listen to those things and go back, but, you know, it also, at the same time, gives you you know, a seal of approval, if you will, on how much you've grown and how long you've come, you know?
All right. And listen, hi, this is AJ, the co-host. And
what's up, AJ?
A lot of people, they might have, you know, DJ questions out for you and everything, but I don't want to beat around the bush. I kind of just want to get to the real things. Third Leg Greg. That nickname is probably one of the best nicknames a person can ever have.
Yeah, I agree.
How was that given to you? Did you just take home a girl one time and it left such an impression on you that she was just...
I wish it was like that. My story's a little bit cooler, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
When I was, you know, an intern, you know, when I was at USF, I got an internship as part of my mass comm degree. And it was at an AM station. And again, this is going back to, I don't want to date myself too much, but like the late 90s when I was at USF. Mm-hmm. And 760 was an AM station here in the Bay Area, which actually I think to this day is now a Spanish radio station. But back then, it was an AM talk station, very similar to some of the other talk radio stations in our market. And they had the Hooters on the radio, legit had a morning show. And they were a spin-off of a product of the Ron and Ron show, which was on 95 YNF. Obviously, Ron Diaz went on to have a great career, still on to this day on 620 WDAE. So the Hooters crew was an offshoot of Ron and Ron, and their morning show, again, was a whole cast of characters, but it was led by Lynn Austin. And Lynn Austin is the original Hooters girl. I mean, she's been the face of the franchise. She was the one that was in Playboy, that was always up on the walls in every Hooters. So she was the brand. And so it was her, this other girl, BL, who was also a former employee of Hooters, and this other girl, Julie, who ended on going on to date Dennis Rodman, like crazy stories about that whole situation. But they had a producer, his name was Spaniard. They had a board op, his name was Bill with Wood. So they had a whole cast of characters. And so I didn't really know too much about this radio program, but back in the 90s, my brother was working at a restaurant. And just like as we all know in radio, there's always a spotlight of some restaurant that's coming to bring in food to the radio show or whatever. My brother's restaurant was chosen to come bring food one day. So he asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, sure, I'd love to go check out this radio station. And when we got down there, it was in Feather Sound, and it was funny because it was right above the floor above 98 Rock. It was like, again, going back in the late 90s. So I was mesmerized when we got into the building and realizing how small the studio was and how large it sounds on the air. But when you got there, it was just this small little room crammed with like 7 people. And I was like, wow, that's the radio station? And so I was mesmerized by that. And so the topic that day, the girls were talking about why men don't like to shop. Lynn Austin was married to Daryl Dalton, the former baseball player, so she had her own, stories about being married to a major league player. And so for whatever reason, that was the topic that day, why men don't like to shop. Well, I came from a retail family. My mom was in fashion retail, worked for Saks Fifth Avenue, Macy's growing up, so we were always around it. So when we got there and it was time for us to go in and bring the food and talk about all the food and stuff, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. So I chimed up in the middle of the break and was like, some dudes do know something about fashion and do like to go shop. And they were like, first of all, who the hell is this kid? And what are you even talking about right now? And so we got into this like banter, and it was like this really natural, just kind of back and forth conversation. And it was funny. And so at the end of the bit, I said to them, I would love to hang around here more. And somebody suggested, well, maybe you could be our intern. And they said, well, we've never had an intern before. Can we have one? And I was like, you're asking me? I have no idea. So I went and ended up speaking to the general manager. And he said, well, I think, you have to be able to get a college credit for these type of things. So I went back to USF. I talked to my professor. I said I had an opportunity to potentially have an internship on this Hooters morning show. And so he got me the paperwork, and sure enough, I landed the intern gig on their show. And for the first few months, I mean, I was their do boy. I mean, they made me go get their coffee and go wash their car. I mean, I really wasn't doing a whole lot. And then I took it upon myself to start learning. I started sitting with the board op and saying, show me how do you run the board? Like, how do you produce a commercial? I really wanted to learn. And then one morning, the big news story that day was the Raymond James Stadium at that time had just gotten approval for the county or whatever for this half-cent tax to help pay for Raymond James Stadium. They were going to destroy the old Houlihan Stadium and finally get this new stadium underway. So the big story that week was that half-cent tax got approved, and they had the groundbreaking for the stadium. So the crew said, we have an intern. We need to go send him out to go do street stunts. I mean, if we have him, we might as well put him to use. And so the most famous bit that I ever really did was they sent me out there with a hard hat and a shovel, and they told me that they wanted me to go to where they had the groundbreaking to start digging. And I was like, I didn't really understand what the whole point of it was, but they said, just make sure you bring your earpiece to your phone so you can work. And so I went out there. I ended up having to hop a fence to get to the groundbreaking area, but I literally just started digging. And so they would check in with me every 20 minutes to come back and check in on how I was doing. And so I'm literally digging. Like, I'm working up a sweat the whole night. And so finally, a worker on the premises, like, they had, like, security, like a security trailer or a whatever. And so he comes over, like, what the hell are you doing? And they're feeding me lines to say to this guy because they could hear the conversation. And so I started getting real cocky with my answers. You know, I'm a 19-year-old kid, and I started freaking out, actually, because I felt like I was going to get in trouble. And sure enough, a police officer pulls up onto the scene, and then I panicked, and I just started running, like a drop the shovel, like I'm running, I'm hauling ass. And you can hear it on the radio station. You can hear me running with the and then the phone cuts out, and it goes dead. And so the police officer comes up, like right next to me as I'm running. He's like, "What are you doing? Stop!" And so I stop, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, "I don't want to go to jail." And so, sure, thank God, this cop was listening to the radio show, so he heard the whole thing happening. And so he pulls me in the back. He says, "I need to verify, like, you know, who you are. You are trespassing." And so I got the GM on the phone. He's freaking out because he's obviously listening to all this unfold. And so I told him, I said, "Do the girls know?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "They're freaking out right now because they think he got arrested." I was like, "Perfect. Don't tell them that I didn't get arrested."
Yeah.
But the cop is here, and the cop said, you know, he's cool with it, but he needs to speak to you. And so they worked it out. I did not get arrested, thank God. But there's the rest of the show, and I remember listening to it on the way back to the station. They were freaking out. They thought they were all going to get fired. And so I literally, like, with 5 minutes left in the show, I kicked open the door, and I was like, "I got you." And they were all like, "Oh," they were like freaking out. And so they're like, "This kid's got a lot of balls, you know." And so he's got a lot of balls, and he was running as if he had 3 legs. That's how fast he was going.
Oh, wow.
That's how it kind of stuck. And then it just took off from there. And then I never changed it my whole radio career. And like you said, it's funny because one of my favorite drops I ever got when I was on Wild was from Dr. Dre. And when somebody said, "Hey, Dre, we've got Third Leg Greg here. He needs to get a drop from you," his reaction to the name was simply classic. If he's laughing, he's like, "How the hell did he get that name?" And it was just funny stuff. Like anytime an artist had to do a drop for me, it was always a conversation starter. So it's been awesome. I mean, again, it got me to this point, so I'm thankful for it. But people can take whatever connotation they want to take from the name. But the reality of it was I really had a lot of balls. As an intern on this radio show, I just really did not care. Whatever they sent me out to do, I would go do it. And so that's kind of how I built the reputation.
So what are you really rocking down there, though? Is it?
Oh, my God.
You see,
Jesus, shock jock.
I'm still thinking he just came to work one day in sweatpants, and then just everyone just started chiming in.
Mushroom Tip Greg. Oh, sorry.
You can believe whatever you want, brother. That's on you, man.
Hey, Greg, honestly, though, when you talk about like a long radio career, and I know I've heard the name since I was a teenager back in the
Sure.
90s, you know, where did you go after, was it 740 you said? Where did you go after that in radio?
So at 760, I was there for, I ended up with my own radio program on the weekends. Again, as part of my internship at the very end, I asked the GM as my final project, would he let me have my own radio show? And he obviously looked at me like I was crazy. But he thought about it, and he said, "You know what, as your final project, I'll give you a 1-hour slot on a Saturday night, but I want you to demonstrate to me that you're going to actually produce your show. What is your show about? Who are you going to talk to? What is it going to be about?" And he even took it as far as letting me go sell my own commercials. And I was like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, how much am I supposed to charge a business owner or somebody for a commercial?" He goes, "You can charge them whatever you want." He goes, "It's just an opportunity for you to now realize there's a whole bunch of other facets involved than just cracking the mic. You got to learn how to sell the station." So he gave me an opportunity. I absolutely ran with it. I said, "I'm going to have the Third Leg Greg show. It's going to be based upon Tampa culture, nightlife." A friend of mine who I went to USF with was a production assistant at MTV. I'm like, oh, he'd be cool to talk to. At the time, I was writing music reviews for a hip-hop magazine in Tampa called The Hive. I was like, I should have the guy that created the magazine on the show. He would be good to talk to. Yeah. So I just lined up my hour and produced the clock, and I sent it to him. And he's like, "All right, we'll run with it." And so I did. And I really went out and hustled and went to a bunch of mom-and-pop shops in Carrollwood, like where I was living at the time, like a consignment shop. I went to a bagel place, a pizza parlor, and I charged them each like $50 as a hungry college kid and I gave them 2 commercials in that hour for my show. And I produced it for them. I let them hear the commercials before it ever ran. And so somebody gave me a shot. A lot of businesses gave me a shot because they believed in what I was trying to do. And so the show went off. Like I said, it was absolutely terrible listening to it years later. But I knew that the station I was on was a brokered radio station, which basically just means that people can pay for the airtime. They do that on WHNZ here in Tampa, for example. It's a lot of medical shows, a lot of legal shows, things of that nature, real estate. So you can pay for the airtime. This station was exactly the same. So at the end of my internship and at the end of everything, I asked the GM, I said, okay, well, it was a great experience. Thank you so much. Just out of curiosity, though, if I was to keep this 1-hour time slot on a Saturday, if you even had that inventory available, what would you charge me for that hour? And he was like, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm dead serious. Like, I'm just curious, how much does a business or a company pay for this hour? And he gave it some thought, and he said, you've done so much for this station, and you've learned so much. He's like, if we were being serious, I would probably only charge you like $100 for the hour.
What?
And I literally threw down $800 from all the commercials that I had sold for my show. Because I think I sold them like eight different businesses, and I went and got however many hundreds of bucks from those folks.
That is legendary, right there, dude.
I ended up slapping the money down and said, "Can you book me 8 weeks?" And he was blown away by that, and he was like, well, I guess your money is green. So now I all of a sudden had my own radio show on an AM station. I was blown away by that. Coming out, still being in college. Dude. So I did that for quite some time and was able to keep sponsors aboard that allowed me to continue to do the 1 hour on a Saturday. So the Third Leg Greg show was born, and that was literally 97-ish heading into 98. My first real reality of the radio business was I came to work one night and my key didn't work in the door. And I was like, and I called the general manager. His phone was disconnected. So I was freaking out, like, what is going on? And so sure enough, I got a hold of the producer from the Hooters show. I was like, I'm trying to get a hold of Jerry. Like, what's going on? I can't get in the building. He's like, oh, you didn't hear? I'm like, obviously what? He goes, the station got sold. I was like, you got what? He goes, it got sold. The Spanish company came in, they bought it out, like La Mega or something, and so they own it. So we're all gone. And that was the end of the Third Leg Greg show. Yeah. And so that was heading into 98, and that was right when Wild 98.7, which is now 94.1. But
that's
back then,
where I heard you from. Yeah,
it was the summer of 98, and I ended up tracking down the company that owned the station, and ended up like busting down the door to just get my foot in the door somewhere. And I got my foot in the door in promotions for the station at the very, very beginning. We're talking within the first 90 days of that station launching. Yeah. And having my foot in the door, I wanted to learn every facet within that company, from board hopping to doing commercials to everything. And so eventually I became the assistant promotions director, the weekend night guy, and then the night guy at that time got fired, and they put me in basically to be the bridge over water until they could find, the next night star in Tampa at this hugely popular radio station. Mm-hmm. But when they put me in, I took the opportunity and ran with it with my Wild Bunch. The ratings went up, and they basically had no choice because the ratings were off the charts, and they signed me to a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option. I was just out of college, only a couple years, and now I have a contract to be on the radio. It blew my mind, man. And I did that for over 7 years. We're the #1 rated night show in Tampa from 1999 to 2005.
Greg.
So, yeah.
What are some of your best memories, man? Because you were there in its prime. It's kicking ass now, but you were there when it first was born. How awesome was it back then, man? In the 90s and then going into the last 10 years. How awesome was it?
Well, it was unbelievable. I really tell people, and I'm glad I documented a lot of it. This is before social media, too, and we were way ahead of the game. This is before MySpace. This is before all of that was really jumping off, and I used to always make my guys, when they would go out at night and do street beats or whatever, I would make them record it. Because I was like, so people are going to want to watch the stuff that we're doing, so we need to record it, whether it's street bits, club stuff, strip club stuff, whatever. I'm like, we need to have this on tape. People will buy a DVD of like the Wild Bunch Gone Wild, and I still have to this day. I have all these videos that we never converted into stuff, but someday I will release some of this footage because it's never before seen and it's definitely not appropriate, that's for sure. But it was amazing, man. I mean, like, to be a part of a station from the birth, first of all, that doesn't happen very often anymore, to be a part of a launch and then to take it to the levels that we took it. I mean, it was an all-out battle between us and FLZ for many, many years.
Yeah.
But we found there was a void in the market with the hip-hop world, and we came in as a storm and just took it over. So there's been so many amazing memories and club nights and concert events. It really availed me some really cool opportunities. I got to broadcast live from the Billboard Awards in Vegas. I got to broadcast from the MTV Music Awards in New York, and that was actually the year that Jimmy Fallon hosted, and Michael Jackson and Britney Spears were there. I mean, it was unbelievable to have those kind of experiences. The World Stunt Awards in Los Angeles, and then just the hundreds of stars that I got to interview, over the years in studio, on location. It was really like the closest thing I would think to being a rock star, like at that time, to be in that position, to be the night guy at that time. It was remarkable. I mean, I really got to live my 20s in a pretty epic manner, to say the least. I mean, there's just everything about it was just remarkable. So,
Greg, let me ask you something, man.
The good thing too is I never burned any bridges, and I'm still cool with every single one of those people that's still over there, like Orlando and Buckwheat and Stifler. Buckwheat and Stifler were my products; they were all my Wild Bunch. So to see the success those guys are having, all these years later, is pretty cool too, man.
Greg, aside from the Wild Bunch, now I was going to have a follow-up question. About, what did you like better, doing the radio or the gig you have now where you're in front of 40,000 people, in the middle of a playoff hunt? But
they're totally different. But
I'm sure. But I want to ask you, who of all the personalities and musicians and things that you've interviewed, and you just talked about like being on MTV and things like that at the Music Awards, was there anything that really topped the charts for you? Like, did you interview Prince or something like that?
Let's see. The top. I mean, that's a tough question because there's been so many remarkable moments. But there's one that really, and it's probably going to sound not as hype as you probably would think, but one of the best times I ever had was Jagged Edge was in the studio at Wild, and it was around Thanksgiving time, and so. They just literally came in, and I remember Orlando was there too, and we were just like making drinks and just like kicking back, and it was just like 5 dudes just hanging out, chit-chatting, just talking like they were old friends, which was weird because I'd never really met them before, but like there's this like instant dude, like guy factor that just kicked in, and it was just like this really cool, relaxed, chill conversation, but it was just real. Like the stuff we were talking about was real, and I was like, I really, in that one instance, connected with those guys, and I don't know. It was probably one of my best interviews I ever had, and it was like you said, it was weird because I didn't like look up to those guys. I loved their music, but then they really sold me as themselves as people more so as artists, and. I remember walking away from that interview, and even Orlando was like, that was just really good radio. And so that was a springboard to, many, many years of interviews following that. But I've made some pretty cool friendships from it. Rest in peace, my man Big Black from Robin Big on MTV.
He was great, man.
We lost him last year, a terrible, terrible loss. He was in the market for, like Rob was doing an in-store signing for his shoes, for DC Shoes here in Tampa, because Tampa has the Tampa Pro. And so those guys actually filmed an episode here of Robin Big, and that's kind of when I met him. I was doing a promo at the same store for him, and he had Bam Bam here with him. And just another dude who's just a real, genuine individual. And he always kept in contact with me. Whenever he left and was coming back into this area, he would always call me. And like, I'm talking about like he would come hang out in my house and just chill and just hang out. And I was like, man, you're literally like, we're watching you right now on MTV, watching these reruns of Robin Big, and you're literally sitting on my couch. It was surreal. But he would always keep in contact with me, just a real genuine individual. And another dude that's like that is Killer Mike, one half of Run the Jewels. Killer Mike is another one of those guys who I just clicked really well with and who has always maintained contact anytime he comes back from this area. He actually has family that lives in St. Pete, so whenever he's here, he makes it a point to hit me up. He was just here 2 weeks ago at the arena at Amalie with Lord, and it was opening for them. And literally as soon as he got off the stage, he talked to Scott Audette, who's a team photographer for the Lightning and for Amalie Arena. And he's like, I'm in the house of 3LG. Why isn't he here? Does anybody know where he's at? And Scott Audette was like, well, I mean, he was here the other night for hockey. And he goes, let me see your phone. You got his number? I need to hit him up. I can't find his number. And sure enough, he called me. Like as soon as he got off stage, he's like, where are you at? And I was like, are you kidding me right now? So those guys are just really cool. So I've been fortunate to be able to keep some friendships from some of these interviews and things I've done over the years that have translated into more than just interviews. It's pretty awesome, man.
Who are some of the guys from the Bolts that you like to talk to or maybe hang out with? Who are some of the guys from the team that are cool?
I mean, they're all pretty cool. They're younger, you know what I mean? Like, most of those guys, unless you're out in Soho or, Harbor Island, because a lot of them live over in that world, I don't really see them a whole lot outside of the arena. Like, I mean, I know Stamkos and Schuster and Alex Killorn, a lot of those guys will be out and about. But again, that's not really my scene. They're a little bit younger than me.
Hey, Greg,
from my experiences,
maybe you should Uber out there like I do, and then you can meet them all. You know, maybe that should be your next pinnacle movement in your career. Just kidding.
Yeah, right. Those guys right now, especially, they're locked in too on what their task is. So I don't think you're going to see them out too much over these next few weeks.
Probably
but
not. Yeah.
The guys that I've had the experience to chit chat with, the Ryan Callahan. Obviously some of our former guys too, like the Dave Anderchucks and the Brian Bradleys and the Dingmans and the guys that are from the Stanley Cup era. I mean, they're always around and they're always down to earth, willing to talk. I mean, even Phil Esposito, man, he's always saying hello, just wants to talk and chit chat. I think we're very fortunate in Tampa that we have athletes that are accessible, and make themselves accessible to their fans, because there's a lot of sports and a lot of different leagues that aren't quite the same as it is when it comes to hockey. I just think we're very fortunate and blessed in Tampa to have such a great team that we do.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think the Lightning need to do to win? Not just win this series, but actually just win all the games and finally get Lord Stanley?
I think, at the end of the day, if we play our A game, which we've seen a lot of our A game this year, if we are healthy and we play our A game and Vazzy plays like Vazzy, I do not see how any team in the league can beat us in 7 games. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a diehard fan. I've seen enough hockey. I've watched enough games. Nashville is dangerous. Vegas is dangerous. But in a 7-game series, again, with our goaltender playing his game and our offense, which we have no problems at offense. We all know that our defense has been shoddy at times. But I think Yzerman has addressed a lot of that with bringing in veteran guys. I think now that we're rested this week, having this full week to rest, in Boston and Toronto, who are going to come into our house beat up after 7 games, I think this is going to be the test. If we look substantially quicker, faster, hitting harder this next series, I think that's just going to be the precursor to the finals and then to the actual cup. So I think if we're going to win it all, we have to maintain our health and just play our game. And I think we will be unstoppable.
I think people are talking a lot about how our team's been a little bit more hard-hitting lately. I think you nailed it right there. Yeah. If they come out...
Well, you've seen it. You've seen Callahan laying dudes out. You've seen, JT Miller. I mean, the game the other night where he literally put a dude on his ass. The dude got up, and he came back and put him on his ass again. I think, like you said, that's that grit, that's that experience, and it's cool to see the younger guys, the Braden Points, the Yanni Gourds, to see them play with that same kind of intensity that they see that they're feeding off of, the guys that have been there before, the Alex Killorns, the Tyler Johnsons, the Andre Palat, those are the guys that we need to continue to pick up their game, and that's been the factor as well. Alex Killorn, for whatever reason, doesn't have a great regular season, but when it comes time for the playoffs, that dude is a killer, literally. And so he's demonstrated that so far. And then Kucherov and Stamkos, so those are our two number one and number two guys. We didn't even really talk about them yet. Mm-hmm. So that just goes to show you there's so much depth and strength in this team. As long as we can get the 100% effort from all of our guys and stay gritty and not let anybody push us around and be the ones pushing around, yeah. I don't see how people are going to stop us.
And also, I mean, I'm a Penguins fan, and my dad, he's a diehard Penguins fan. But even like both of us,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. But even both of us, like looking at like who's going to win, like we want to say the Penguins will win it all, but we're just looking at the Lightning and the season they've been having, and just the type of players that they have on that team, and how things were going this year is just it's too hard. You can't be. No one can be that stupid and not say that. Like, I don't know. There's just something way different about the Lightning this year. And
correct.
They're just an exciting team. And you can ask any fan, and they're the number one team on their watch list is the Lightning. And they're like, well, we got to beat those Lightning. That's the only way we could win. Beat the Lightning. So
right. And that's never really been that way. No. I mean, you can look back at the past few years, and yes, we've made it to the finals. Yes, we've made it to the Cup. But we just haven't had that extra it factor. Mm-hmm. But it seems like this year we have it. And, I mean, like you said, it seems like all the pieces are in place for us to take it. I mean, it's obviously they have to control their own destiny and write their history. Mm-hmm. But when you've had the NHL All-Star Game festivities and all that were in our city this year, we now have taken the division, in the regular season. We've had the top goal scorers. Everything has laid itself out for them to take it this year. So, and like you said, to have teams like Boston or Pittsburgh, teams that we typically were, the things you were just saying were the things that we have been saying about those teams. Mm-hmm. And now to see that has completely switched, and people are like, well, now the Lightning is that team. They're the ones we have to look out for. They're the ones we have to beat. That's the difference maker, I think, this season. So hopefully, we only have 12 more until we raise Lord Stanley. So it doesn't sound like it's a whole lot more, and hopefully they're focused on that too, one game at a time, but you only got 12 left, till glory. So fingers crossed we get there.
Dude, how awesome has John Cooper been as a coach? It seems like he's the underrated piece in this puzzle. I feel like he's the one that is the glue.
I would agree with that. I mean, Cooper also has seen a lot of these guys, from the juniors and seen them develop. And, I mean, obviously the other factor is Steve Yzerman and the scouts being able to pick up guys like Yanni Gourde, who couldn't get a professional contract, and Tyler Johnson's too small. And these guys have seen these things. I mean, remember how crazy it sounded, like, oh man, they're going to get rid of Ben Bishop and like Andre Bazahu, and now it's like, well, he's already shattered like every record. He passed Hobby Bullen, most shutouts this year, most points scored. Like, our team is setting records that if you told us that 3 years ago, we probably would have looked at you like you were crazy 2-3 years ago. But it goes back to the coaching, it goes back to ownership, it goes back to the general manager. It's just, we really do have the best franchise, not team, in like of all sports. I mean, that's why ESPN voted the Lightning the number one franchise in all of sports, is because it starts from the top and goes to the bottom, and all across the board, the Lightning and Amalie Arena, they do it right. They've built the culture. It's taken a long time to get here, but I think everybody else emulates what we do here, and it's for a good reason. Just the other night at the Game 5, we had the director of the the Detroit Red Wings, the guy that, in our building, John Franzone is the maestro who's kind of directing the game night, and their version of John Franzone was there. And after the game, he came down and spoke to all of us in Lightning Vision, and we said, you're a very storied franchise up there in Detroit. You guys have a pretty long history, and what did you think of our game presentation and how things went tonight? He was literally blown away. He's like, this is probably the best show I've seen in all of sports. I'm like, well, I mean, you're hearing it from somebody who's with a storied history franchise, and they're coming to our house to observe what we're doing. I mean, it says a lot about the organization for sure.
By the way, speaking of Red Wings, can we not let the 2 or 3 guys wearing Red Wings jersey that go to every Lightning game?
Oh my
God!
God.
The Red Wings aren't even playing in. Can we just not let them in? Because
I don't even know how that happens. I still don't understand why fans wear opposing jerseys of teams that are not on the ice.
Yeah,
I don't get that. It's like if we're playing we're playing Chicago and somebody's in there wearing a Philadelphia jersey. Like, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, what is the point of that? I do not get it.
There was one time I saw a guy with an Orlando Sun Bears jersey, and it's like that like minor league hockey team that they tried to start like a few years ago.
But even that I would give a pass. I'd be like, okay, he's a minor league dude. He's just taking in a pro game. I can kind of relate to that. And you're in Orlando. Okay, it's up the street.
Yeah.
You're representing Florida. But Philly during a Lightning Chicago game, I don't get it, man.
Dude.
I don't get that guy.
How annoying. I'm not going to even give him the time of day. How annoying was that hack sports radio host that was ripping into our city? I thought that was a low blow, and I thought it showed.
The great Ian Beckles said it. If you don't have haters, you're not doing something right. Mm-hmm. So that guy, obviously, hating on us because we're doing something right. So he's obviously either jealous or hates the fact that we have some excitement going on in our city when they're just drudging with the crap that they have to deal with, the product that they have to deal with, the fact that we play hockey. People will always hate the fact that hockey does so well in a place that the year-round temperature is 80 degrees. People just will never be able to grasp that hockey doesn't belong in the South. Okay, cool. Well, you can go ahead and hate, and we'll continue to do what we do. And when we raise that cup, you can continue to hate on us even more. So that dude is just trying to get people to pay attention to what he's doing. And we all know there's clickbaits and bait and switch and all that. That's what he was trying to do. And so we put him in his place, and his team, sucks. And we, it was great to see people troll him. When he called us out, the Lightning have 7 fans, and we're sending him pictures from Armature Works with 4,000 people showing up for a watch party. Okay, dude, you can continue to talk about our market. You know absolutely nothing about us. So, great.
Again, we're talking to third leg Greg. Greg Wolf with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't want to be the co-host here, AJ, and step on your toes.
Oh, yeah. It's all right. No, it's
gone.
But you had something you wanted to ask him.
Here's what I want to ask you. Think about it. Think real hard, Greg. Who would you rather have them play? The Leafs or the Bruins? Who would you rather have them play?
I don't think it matters because we're going to beat either one of them. However, as a true Tampa fan, I don't want to see Boston succeed in any sport no matter what. I don't care if it's the Red Sox.
Agreed.
I don't care if it's the Bruins. I don't care if it's the New England Patriots. I don't care if it's their freaking indoor soccer team. I do not want Boston to win anything. Mm-hmm. With that being said, Toronto, I think we would play better against. However, we've destroyed Boston at the end of the year 4-0, so that we're not scared of them either. I think for our satisfaction, if you will, I think beating down a Boston team and also taking them in 5 games, 4 or 5 games, would be just a moral boost to us. But at the same time, I don't think Boston deserves it. So I would like to see Toronto get in for the rivalry aspect of U.S. versus Canada, so to speak. And both teams are blue and white. And I know Toronto fans going to try to infiltrate our building, but I just think, I think Toronto, the city, kind of like Winnipeg, they've been dying for this for so long. And the fact that Toronto has battled back to force a Game 7, I think that they've earned it. And I would like to see us battle Toronto. I think we will handle any of the two or each of the two respectively. But I just can never root for Boston to move past around in anything. So I'm just going to have to say Toronto. I think they've earned it more than Boston has.
Dude, even though some of the fans that come here can be so cocky and such douchebags, it's kind of cool that we live in a vacation spot, because when I work the Games for the Bone, it's very cool to meet different, let's say, cultures, let's say Canada or the East Coast or the West Coast. Isn't it cool to meet different people from different cities when they visit?
It is, because believe it or not, like you said, you're always going to get the jackass.
Yeah,
you're always going to get the guy that's drinking too much and who's talking smack. And okay, you're always going to get that guy. But on the overall scheme of things, yes, I find that most of the people that come here to our city, to our building, whether they're from Canada or from up north or whatever, they're super nice, and they have nothing but amazing things to say about the experience that they have when they come to our building. Not only from the atmosphere out on Fort Thunder Alley before the game with opportunities to drink and interactives. Like you said, you guys are out there with the phone taking pictures, the Lightning girls, and everybody's accessible. And they have the Fox Sports people are out there shooting, it's just a whole spectacle. It kind of blows their mind because there's not a lot of arenas out there that have the kind of accessibility and that plaza area that we have here in Tampa. So they get this whole new experience, and then like the moment they walk in the door and they're ushers or they're greeted by our staff, and they're super friendly and they're trying to help them get to their seats. And then there's all these interactive things on the concourse, and there's like amazing food choices, and then they see, wow, they really have Lightning actually happening in the game, and like it's just an experience, and they are so happy to be there. They're super nice. Like you said, I rarely have run into somebody that did not have a good time, whether their team won or lost, that did not have an amazing time coming into our house. And I think they respect us now. There's a lot of people, like you said, that want to talk smack about our city. It's because they don't know. They haven't been here. They're just hating from afar. But once you come here and see how great of an experience you're going to have, and the fact that Lightning fans aren't a-holes, I'm saying we're passionate about our people, but we're not going to be like Philly fan. You know what I mean? We're not that guy. We're not Boston guy. We may be transplanted here, but this is our city, and we've molded our Bolts Nation to have respect for our opponent. But at the same time, we're gonna knock you in the dirt. You know what I mean? So I think our reputation precedes us. But yeah, man, it's been a great opportunity to meet people from all over the world.
So I've been here for 3 years now. The first gig I ever worked was a Bolts game about 3 years ago. So I've seen this town grow with, let's say, 3 years. Let's say traffic is getting to be a big market.
Atrocious.
Dude, it's getting worse
Traffic's
by the
getting
day.
Horrible.
But here's what I want to ask you. So I've been here for 3 years, and I can see that this town is growing by the day. You've been here for so long, man. How awesome is it seeing Tampa grow by the minute and become a big city? Jay-Z and Beyonce bought a house. John Cena lives here. How awesome is it seeing Tampa become a major market by the day?
I mean, it's remarkable to see how fast it is growing.
Yes.
Like you said, it is a testament to when you have these big athletes and superstars and Hollywood people are starting to move here, because we're no longer like the best kept secret. And that was one of the big reasons when I moved down here from the Maryland, D.C. area. It was because Tampa had so much to offer. You're so centrally located with everything, like you said, not just what we have here to offer in Tampa and the beaches and the theme parks and all the sports franchises, but Orlando, you've got Disney, which is literally an hour away, and you've got these amazing microbreweries that have popped up. We've become a foodie city. We literally are becoming a vacation and a relocation destination for people all over the country. Like you said, there's no surprise that Forbes and all these magazines are listing us as like one of the top destinations that people all over the country are moving to. But to see the city growing so fast to keep up with it, that's where I think a lot of cities, haven't been able to keep up with the demand and redevelop and redesign and have the bright minds and the money to do it. And again, it goes back to Jeffrey Vinnick. I mean, look what he's doing with Water Street and how fast. They just had the groundbreaking today for the new JW Marriott, which is going to be in front of the Waterside Marriott. And it's going to be Tampa's first official 5-star, royal treatment hotel. It's completely going to change the dynamic of our city, and the skyline is everything. So it's remarkable. It's truly remarkable. Like you said, I've seen it since I moved here in '93. So I've seen it grow so much, and not just Tampa, but all the outskirts. Like, look how much St. Pete has grown.
Yes.
Look how much Lakeland has grown. I just saw a news story the other day about Mulberry and how Mulberry's got these developers coming in, building these new communities for 6,000 homes. I'm like, it's just growing faster than we can even imagine. And I can only imagine what this city is going to look like in a decade. Not even a decade. I'll say in 5 years how much different Tampa's going to look. It's going to be awesome.
Well, dude, thank you for being on the show. I know
No doubt. Thanks for
I
having
know
me,
the
man.
Bolts are going to win this year. When the Bolts win, how are you going to react? What are you going to do when the Bolts win it this year? Will you go crazy? What's going to go on?
Yes, I will say this, and the fingers crossed that, when we get to the Cup, that we're able to win the Cup at home. That's the key
Oh,
here.
that'd be awesome,
If we win the Cup in front of our fans,
oh my God,
I am going to have to do a belly dive on the ice. Like as soon as the players are done shaking hands, and do the official handshake with whoever it is, you're just going to see the arena host just go flying across the ice on his stomach.
Three
Just, wow,
tracks
what are you
in
gonna
the
do?
snow,
What are you going
man.
to do to me? You know what I mean? They're going to yell at me, tell me to go. Everybody's going to be so happy and ridiculous. I got to do something crazy. So I'll probably do a belly slide across the ice at some point.
Well, dude, keep up the good work, and we will have you on when they win this year. Let's not jinx it, but we know it's our year. Sounds good, bro?
I dig it. I appreciate it, man.
All right,
Let's do
peace
it.
out, bro.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Thank you, man.
Later.